All right, peace and blessings, everyone, and assalamu alaikum, and welcome back to the STEM Files, where we serve as the voice of STEM talent and Black culture. In tonight's episode, we're going to be building with four-time guest, biomedical scientist and agricultural research scientist, Brother Victer Muhammad, and we're going to be talking about ADHD among Black youth. We're going to be talking about how real it is among Black youth, and what are some of the things that we can do as a people to combat the different types of disorders and diseases that they place on our children. Stay tuned for more after this.
You believe in these false prophets, I say I bet he lying. No football, New York City Giants. Girl dad, rest in peace to Kobe Bryant. When we teaching our babies, we teach them heavy science. Heavy science. Heavy science. When we teaching our women, we teach them heavy science. Heavy science. Heavy science. When we teach men, we teach them heavy.
All right, family, as I said before, welcome back to the STEM Files. We serve as the voice of STEM talent and Black culture, where we highlight the best and the brightest in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And in this special edition of the STEM Files, we are talking with four-time guest, biomedical scientist and agricultural research scientist, Brother Victer Muhammad. And this is a series, the next couple of episodes that we do with our brother are really a series entitled The Joshua Generation. And each episode is going to be tailored to something involving our young people, okay? So one of the things that is really plaguing, well, first and foremost, my name is Tariq Muhammad, aka Tariq Cardiac. I am a biomedical research scientist with a concentration in cardiovascular pathobiology, which is the study of how diseases form in the heart and blood vessels. I will soon be joined by my right hand, my best friend, business partner, Victer Muhammad, aka Jabril Engineer. He is a civilian mechanical engineer with the United States Navy. He works on those big, powerful ships that you see out at sea with the U.S. Navy. Now, family, once again, thank you all for joining us. Like I said before, each episode that we are accompanied with our brother Victer, who is a biomedical scientist and agricultural research scientist, we're going to be talking about the Joshua generation. And in each episode, we're going to be talking about something that's inflicting the Joshua generation or keeping them from fulfilling the prophecy of them being the Joshua generation. And of course, there's several health issues that are going on with our young people today. And one of them is ADHD, otherwise known as attention deficit hyperactive disorder. Now, Brother Victer, first and foremost, thank you for coming back on the STEM Files. This is, of course, your second home. But we wanted to, first and foremost, for those who are just tuning in, may not be familiar with you, can you please share with us who you are, what you do, and then we'll get right into the program.
Sure. In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful. My name is Victer Muhammad, and for the last 40 years, I've worked as an agricultural research scientist, and the last 33 years, I've worked as a biomedical research scientist. I was born and reared in the Mississippi Delta, and it's where I was grounded with my love and understanding for the natural sciences. And that has taken me through the last 40 years as a professional in those fields, which brings us to where we are today. I also have served 33 years as a minister, or what some people around the world will refer to as imam in the Nation of Islam. And that's a good description of my background.
Yes, sir, absolutely. And Jabril's going to be joining us shortly, but I wanted to get your thoughts on tonight's topic. I remember texting you and asking you, is there something specific about the Joshua generation that you wanted to talk about as it relates to your field, as it relates to biomedical sciences? And I came up with the suggestion that we go into ADHD. Why did you agree to it? What was it that said to you, okay, let's do this particular topic?
Well, as a child, when I was about 4 or 5 years old, I started having dreams that the world was coming to an end. And it would scare me really bad. And I would run outside the house in the mornings and look at the sky, because in the dream, the sky, the clouds were rolling, and people were running and people were afraid. And it scared me really bad. And as I began to grow, I began to have experiences where a voice in this ear would advise me not to do something. If I did it, then I would suffer really bad consequences. If I didn't do if I did ignore, or if I did what the voice said do, then there would be a very small benefit. As I grew older, these two dynamics grew stronger. And by the time I was about 22, 23, was when I really realized who was this voice speaking to me. And that voice was God. And to this day, about for the last 34 years, as long as I do what that voice says do, nothing happens, I get benefits, everything goes well. If I don't listen to that voice, even up to this very day, then there is some kind of consequence. So, about a year ago, I received a communication which stated that I should address the Joshua generation, because I saw what was happening to the Joshua generation, and the reason behind what is happening to the Joshua generation. And that's when you and I had the discussion, which brings us to where we are today in part two of the discussion and the warning to the Joshua generation. It's a warning, and let's be clear about that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Absolutely. It's definitely a warning, and we definitely appreciate you coming through again on the STEM Files to give us this particular warning. Now, tonight's topic, as it relates to your warning, beloved, is in regards to a condition that a lot of our youth, particularly Black youth, have been labeled as because of their because of our educational system's inability to direct them into what they see fit or how they feel that they should be absorbing information. So first and foremost, let's bust up some terminology. What is ADHD? And where did this come from in your years of medical research? Where did you start seeing this particular terminology start having an effect?
I believe it was around the beginning of the late 1980s, early 1990s, when the onslaught of attacks began to take place against the American Black youth. There, one thing that people don't understand or even realize is that medicine, as it is characterized, has the ability, if a physician or a psychiatrist wants to create a new disorder, or in the case of biological diseases, a new disease, then the only thing they have to do is create 2 or 3 quote unquote symptoms that will mark that disease and identify that disease. They give it a name. They take it to the American Medical Association if it's a biological disease, or they take it to the American Psychiatric Association if it's a so-called mental illness like what you're saying with ADHD. Then they get it approved as a new disease or a new mental condition. And once it's approved, then someone has to create a drug to treat it. And then once that happens, only a member of one of these associations has the authority, the legal authority to diagnose that disease. And once that disease is approved by the AMA or the American Psychiatric Association, it is now a bona fide disease that you can now begin treating people. And that doesn't make it legitimate. That doesn't make it real. That doesn't mean that it's a true or an actual fact. It simply means that it is now an approved event by one of these associations, and now a drug can be made for it, and it becomes a practice. Now, there is no denying. Stevie Wonder, Ray Charles, Ronnie Millsap can see that there is an attack by someone or some organization or some entity against the American Black people, against the American Black youth. Anyone can see that. So when it became unpopular in the 1980s, when Black people began having successful trials against wrongful deaths and things like that, the Caucasian population of the United States knew that they could not continue to you. And then what began to happen is that they realized they had to take another approach. And that approach was to kill you under the guise of some medical treatment or some other avenue. And what better thing to do than to kill you right within the law? Diagnose a disease, like, for instance, I'm going to say something, I won't delve into it, but let's say kidney failure or renal disease, kidney problems. When was the last time you visited what do you call those clinics you go to? Dialysis clinic. In any part of America, visit a dialysis clinic and tell me what is 99% of the population inside a dialysis clinic. You'll find that they're African Americans.
Right.
Are you suggesting that no one else get kidney trouble? No, that's not what they're suggesting. What it is that that's a ploy to remove you from the planet. Because once you start allowing them to bake your blood during the kidney dialysis, then it's only a matter of time before you're out of here. And so the diagnosis of ADHD, number one, it keeps the economy going. You have to understand that everything in America has been codified in such a way and such a manner that it has become a business. Everything. Why do you get a speeding ticket? It keeps the economy going. It pays for small municipalities and the police department, the clerks, and to buy new police cars and such and such and such and such. So why develop new diseases to use them to keep the economy going, number one. Number two, it allows them to place a star on a black person, a black youth, preferably a male, because most people diagnosed with ADHD are young African American males.
That's a fact.
So by doing so, you have now placed a star by his name, an asterisk, so that now as that person moves through the society, that person is marked. And by being diagnosed with ADHD, they can start to project the projectile in toward the prison industrial complex. Before the Berlin Walls were brought down in 1989, there were approximately 700,000 prisoners in the United States of America. 2 years after the Berlin Wall came down, there were approximately 3 million prisoners in the United States of America. 72% of those prisoners are African Americans, mostly male. Out of out of out out of out of 3 million prisoners. In fact, I think the last time I did a survey, there were 7 million people inside the prison industrial complex, either on parole or in jail or in the local county jail. And 72% of those are African Americans, mostly male. So it is a way of driving the economy. It's a way of keeping productive black males off the street and out of the community. And it's a manner of controlling the population without having to physically kill you the way they've done up until the 1980s, when it became unprofitable for a municipality to kill an African American.
Mm. And so much was was built on just now. But Jabril, you just got on, so I'm gonna let you go ahead and eat first, real quick, bro.
Yes, sir. Well, first and foremost, please excuse my lateness family. Excuse my latest brother Victor. Definitely happy to have you back on. I think this is a topic that is very potent, that we need to hear, that we need to share. I'm very excited. And you said a few things that got my wheels turning. We were talking about a bit of policy and money, and really creating a system that creates a sort of passive income. Well, it's something like a speeding ticket. People getting speeding tickets every day.
Right, right,
So that's going to continue to pay municipalities as long as you have cars on the road, right? So you have, when a potentially active young black youth, ADHD could potentially do the same thing. So I liked the juxtaposition of continual policy and money as a sort of foundation for the conversation that we're having today, which is how real is ADHD among black youth. So thank you for that, and let's keep it pushing.
absolutely, absolutely. And you mentioned, brother Victor, almost like this assembly line process that the American Medical Association goes through to actually justify the diagnosis and treatment of certain disorders. One of the things that you said that really stuck out to me was identifying certain symptoms and kind of making them up to be this disorder. In ADHD, can we talk about some of those symptoms and what these these symptoms typically mean when it comes to human behavior in a sense, and how it's not always a disorder or not a disorder at all.
Well, if I wanted to, and if you wanted to, if you went and acquired the necessary documentation to make you a clinician, you could create a disease this afternoon. Some people may find that difficult to believe, but it is not difficult at all. You could literally create a disease this afternoon or tomorrow, and you could submit your documentation to have that disease declared an actual disease by the American Medical Association or the American Psychiatric Association, and it becomes a literal disease. And what happens is that the symptoms, some of the symptoms that are characterized as ADHD are hyperactivity, the inability to focus, uh, a lot of movement, uncontrolled movement. I don't think that that is as important as the fact that the disease has been created. I think that what the public should understand is that, first of all, there is no such thing as ADHD.
Uh-oh.
First of all. Secondly, what is being characterized as ADHD is a situation where you have a male animal. One thing that we have to understand is that the human being is an animal. You can't forget that. And secondly, any male animal has and possess testosterone. When you have an animal like a human male who has testosterone in his body, and that testosterone must be brought under the control of the human brain. If that is not done under what we call discipline, then that male animal becomes aggressive and uncontrollable. In 1989, while I was working in Washington, D.C., I received one of those communications that I told you at the beginning of this conversation. And it took my mind back to some work that I did with bulls, where we were measuring testosterone in bulls. And I remember all of the characteristics that are under control of testosterone in a male mammal. And I started looking at Black men, and I saw that I said, there must be more testosterone in Black men than there is in other men.
That's
And I didn't have the ability at the time to run any tests to prove my theory, but I was working at Washington, D.C. as a fisheries scientist with the government of the District of Columbia. And I sat at my desk about 2 days and I wrote a paper out of my head on the theory that I had that there was more circulating testosterone in Black males than any other human male, and that testosterone was being manipulated by wise people to entrap Black males. The very fact that we had more circulating testosterone was a benefit, but like anything that's taken out of control, it became our Achilles heel. So I took it to some people in Washington, D.C., Black people that were supposed to be Black leaders. And I took it to a medical doctor who I knew. And he dismissed it, as nonsense, and that it had our behavior had nothing to do with it. And I didn't agree with him, but I didn't argue with him. Then in 1998, maybe 1999, I was working for Novartis Pharmaceuticals in Gaithersburg, Maryland. And I was working on developing new drug delivery techniques by using mice. And I had to do a literature search to investigate something that I was seeking. And I came upon a paper, a published article that stated that Black males have more circulating testosterone than any other human male. 10 years later, the theory that I had and wrote that article about was proven, and it was a Jewish scientist and he reported it. So I knew when I wrote it, I was correct. I just didn't have the data to back it up. So I'm saying to you that in the homes in 1964, the vast majority of black families were headed by a black man. In 1964, 68% of all prisoners in America was Caucasian males. 29% were comprised of African American and Hispanic American males in 1964. By 1974, 70% of all prisoners in the United States were black males. 30% were Caucasians. So, in 10 years, did black men all of a sudden, or African American males, all of a sudden become criminals? Or was there an activity that took place that started to direct black males into the penal system? In 1960s, early 1960s, the black family was headed by a black father. By 1968, through the introduction of welfare and black females being admitted to colleges and universities around the country, the black family started to break down because of these two things. So if you consider the divorce rate and the incarceration rate today in the black population of America, you'll find that the numbers in both populations are the highest in the world. Black people in America have the highest divorce rate on the planet. I hope you all are listening to me. Secondly, black males, there are more black males incarcerated than any other population on the planet. In fact, I think the last time I checked was like 2002. There were more prisoners in the prisons of America than the total population of 221 countries around the world. I'll repeat that. There are more prisoners or people in the prison industrial or penal system in America, 7 million, than there are the total population of 221 countries around the world. The United Nations recognizes about 272 countries, I think, around the world. And a country like Trinidad and Tobago has a population of 1 million. Well, there are 7 million people, according to statistics back in 2002, of total people in the prisons. So if I want to start to channel you and break down your population, the first thing that I do is introduce welfare into the American population. Now, according to the United States Census of 1988, there are more Caucasian women on welfare than there are black women. There are more black women who attend colleges and universities than anybody else except Caucasian males. So what started to happen in 1968 was the introduction, as I said, of welfare in the black community, and then the special programs that began to support African American females to attend college. But the agreement was deny or make it as difficult as possible for African American males to enter college. Make college untasteful or distasteful to black males. So even today, you hear people who love to recite that there are more black women in college than there are black men. They love to recite that. But an analyst or a person who has concern will ask the question, why? See, you can't resolve any problem. You can't fix any problem until you raise one question, and that is why. That begins the investigational process to resolving the issue. But you don't hear anyone ask the question why when it comes to African American males. The objective is to keep them, first of all, to put an asterisk by their name, then start to channel them toward the prison industrial complex. You remove the man from the house in 1968. So when you have a boy growing up in a household who has more circulating testosterone than any other boy on the planet, and you don't have anyone to instill and enforce discipline during the formative years of that boy's development, meaning from birth to 9 years of age, then what you are doing, in fact, is creating an animal and creating a criminal. And this is the nexus between ADHD, or the claim of ADHD, and the Joshua generation. See, what makes one the Joshua generation? Where did that nomenclature occur? The Joshua generation is recognized in the Torah, or the Old Testament, as those chosen people of Jehovah, God. And they were chosen because they would be the ones who would be the seed for the new generation that God would bring on the earth. And to prevent them, as Jehovah told Joshua to take the children of Israel into the wilderness and leave them there for 40 years. Why for 40 years? So that the weak and corrupted of the children of Israel, or the African American, so that those in my generation and older, most of us are too corrupted to be saved. Most of us have been defiled so much by the Caucasian population that God can't save us. Now, there are people who are going to disagree, but the only thing I can tell you is go outside your home and just observe us. Look at the stuff that we do. Look at our behavior. You see, does it appear that we're being reformed? The truth has been among us for 93 years now. The truth and the message of God.
Right.
What do you see in our behavior? Do you see people who are reforming? Do you see people who are listening to God? Or do you see people who are listening to Satan? Paul said, show me a man with faith, and I'll show you a man with great works. Faith without works is dead.
That's right.
Jesus said, or the Bible said, be ye doers of the word. Not be ye hearers, be ye doers.
Right.
So the Joshua generation, Jehovah knew that they were not going to listen to him and reform, because too many prophets had already been sent to reform them. And each one of them had been rejected. Jonah had a little bit of success, but even after Jonah got the people of Nineveh to go right, after Jonah left a little bit later, they turned wrong too. So Jehovah already knew that they wouldn't do right. And so to keep those in my generation and older from corrupting the young people, God told Jonah, take them in the woods, leave them there for 40 years, let the older ones die off. Then take the young ones into the promised land, because they were too young to have been corrupted by Pharaoh, meaning the young people, the ones who we say have ADHD. See, they haven't been corrupted yet by the Western world, by the Caucasian world. And God can save them once he's removed our generation and those older than us out of the way. Then God can come in himself and reform the young people. And this is why they're called the Joshua generation. This is why when you look in the Injil, or what you call the New Testament, Jesus told the disciples, go down into the town. You'll find a colt and an ass tied there, meaning a young male horse who has not been castrated. And remember what I said about testosterone. Testosterone is produced in the testicles,
Right.
hence the name testosterone. And a little side note, those who like to argue about whether a woman can be a minister, well, this is to verify that she was never intended to be. Because the word testify, if you're going to testify for God, then before the Caucasian took over the world, in order to testify, if you said that God said something or that you were speaking on behalf of God and you were found that what you testified to was not true, then your testicles would be removed for you misrepresenting God. Hence the word testify. That's the origin of it. So, so Jesus told them, go down into the town, find the colt and the ass. An ass is a donkey. The scientific name is Equus asinus. That's where the word ass comes from, the species. And so what does this represent? He said, you'll find them tied. A colt, which is a young horse that has not been castrated, but it's immature. It's not physiologically mature, which represents the intellectual class of young black males. And an ass, the donkey, which represents the uneducated class of young black males. And both of them are tied, meaning they're unproductive. See, a horse that's tied can't do any work. A donkey or an ass that's tied can't do any work. And in America, you find the young black men who are educated can't find a job. The unskilled or so-called uneducated black males can't find a job because the objective of the American system is to force the black males to be unproductive. Therefore, we can continue to break up the family by saying that, well, black men don't like to work. Well, that's not true. That's a misnomer. A black man will work, but I spent many years in the employment sector of America. I know what I endured. I went to school 23 years after high school. So I know what it's like to function in America on a job. You come in there, you've got all the skills, you've got all the credentials. You're 45 years old. They bring in a young Caucasian male that's 21, and he becomes your supervisor. Then he speaks to you in a manner that's condescending, calls you by your first name. You old enough to be his dad. I'm not talking about in 1930. I'm talking about in 2023. It still takes place. So it's very difficult. If you are a black man, it's still difficult, damn near impossible to be on a job today and maintain your composure. And I say to people, I haven't been a minister, I haven't been over a mosque since 2012. But I teach manhood training and discipline everywhere I go. In the airport in Paris, you'll find me talking about discipline, man. I don't need a mosque or a church or a building to represent God. Everywhere I go, 23 hours, 56 minutes, and 46 seconds of every day, I'm talking about what needs to be done. What is the definition of a man? Someone asked me during a lecture in 2012. A woman in the audience asked me, she said, Mr. Muhammad, what is a man? I had never been asked that question before. So immediately I didn't have an answer. but I went back to my early training as a minister in the nation. And as she asked the question and I was thinking, I said a prayer to myself, because that's the only thing you have to do with God. When you're not prepared for something, keep your composure and say a prayer. And I did, and here's what came out of my mouth. I said, a man is a male human who does what needs to be done. And I said, you may want to ask another question, but the first thing that you should do is let that sink in. You see, you don't have to tell a man what to do. What a man is supposed to do is written in his DNA. If you bring yourself from under the control of Caucasian people, nobody has to tell you what to do. It's already written in you. You just have to loose yourself, like Jesus told the disciples to go and loose the colt and the ass. You're tied up in America as a black man, you see. And as a result, you're unproductive. I don't care how much money you make, that's a job. But what are you producing?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, family, as like I said in about 20 minutes ago, there's so much to unpack, and our brother has said so much that could really be broken down and made into his own episode. So we're gonna take a break real quick. We're gonna go into the final call newspaper, and after that, we're gonna get into some questions from the audience. Check it out.
Now you can get the same uncompromising truth you've come to expect from the Final Call newspaper on all your connected devices. Subscribe to the Final Call Digital Edition today. Go to subscribe.finalcalldigital.com.
Peace. This is Victer Muhammad, a future architect. And you're watching The STEM Files.
All right. Welcome back, family. And once again, this is the STEM Files. We serve as the voice of STEM talent and Black culture. Shout out to Sister I, who did a phenomenal job last week as a guest co-host in our special edition of the Black up-and-coming architects, both inside the Nation of Islam and out. Jabril, what's this week's edition of the Final Call all about?
Yes, sir. And I am hot reading this. So, family, this is the Final Call newspaper, a message dedicated to the resurrection of black man and woman in America and around the world. This week's edition: extreme and record-breaking heat waves, unprecedented dangerous heat waves continue impacting tens of millions of people across the United States and abroad. Experts fear these weather events will intensify, bearing witness to the constant warning by the Honorable Minister Farrakhan about God's judgment and to watch the weather. Yes, the Honorable Minister Farrakhan for decades has been instructing us and anyone who will listen to him to watch the weather. I know here in Philadelphia, we're currently experiencing 90+ degree weather, which feels like much more than that. You know, I feel like the fans and the air conditioners are working overtime. And in our lessons in the Nation of Islam, we're taught who makes rain, hail, snow, and earthquakes, and heat is wrapped right up in that. We know it's the God of this world, and we know that we're in a time where the weather events are very unprecedented. So if you are one who likes to read on your tablet, laptop, or phone, you want to go to finalcalldigital.com and sign up for your digital subscription. Make sure to follow at Final Call Newspaper on all platforms. And if you're in the Richmond, Philadelphia, or other areas within the Nation of Islam, you want to tap in with myself or the Tariq or Brother Victor to make sure you get your physical edition as well. And we can also make sure that you tap in and get it consistently and broaden our customer base. The Final Call newspaper family, that good news you can use.
Absolutely, family, and I appreciate that, bro. And we would be remiss if we didn't go into detail. With this being a science-based program, what exactly is a heat wave? What qualifies a heat wave? So let's get into that, family. A heat wave is an extended period of hot weather relative to the expected conditions of the area at a time of year, at that time of year, which may be accompanied by high humidity. Heat waves, family, if you're, whether no matter what part of the country you're in, heat waves can be a detriment to those who have pre-existing health conditions. So, someone being in a health background and dealing with, I've seen patients come into the hospital, from heat stroke, which is an attack that the body goes through when it has been exposed to an absorbent amount of heat that is not able to process. And one of the things that I would recommend anybody to do in cases like this when you have extreme heat is to stay hydrated, stay away from stressful conditions. Don't spend a whole lot of time outside. For the brothers pushing the final call, I get it. We like to stay out there all day, but you don't got to do that. Try to spread yourself throughout the week. Make sure you get enough days in where you're not out there all day long getting pounded on by that heat. So that's just something that we can take in addition to what this week's edition of the final call is all about. But let's get back to it. Jabril, we got some questions for the audience from the audience.
Absolutely. And Brother Dr. Victor, I know you prefaced a big part of our conversation today by a very interesting and profound statement saying that ADHD itself does not exist. But I'm going to connect that to the question from a brother and friend of mine, a fellow alumni of George Washington Carver High School of Engineering and Science here in Philadelphia, Malik Baynard. And he asked the question, any word on the cheer study? It says correlating diet to ADHD diagnosis, high vegetable intake being known to ameliorate ADHD. Now, with the earlier comment and this question, what would you have to say to this if you have any information on this?
Well, actually, that is a good question because the phenomenon that is termed ADHD
Yes, sir.
is attributed to diet.
Come on.
When you consider the diet of the average African American household, I know we think we eat well, but when you start frying bologna, putting it between two slices of white bread,
Lay it out.
And drinking Kool-Aid when you mix the purple with the orange. Most of these are things that would kill a gorilla. Okay, my training in the collegiate environment was animal science. In animal science, I studied meat and meat products. These were courses to teach you how to make cold cuts, to teach you how to go into the slaughterhouse, run a slaughterhouse. If you saw how sausages, which bologna is a sausage, if you saw how sausages and franks were produced, if you saw them being produced, you would regurgitate at just the sight of it. That is the lowest piece of tissue from the animal placed inside a room-sized vat, it's like a pot, a large pot, and they throw everything in there they can't be put anywhere else. And I'm laughing, but it's the truth. And by the time they add the monosodium glutamate and the other seasonings and they cook that stuff, it tastes pretty good, right? So when you're eating bologna and then Kool-Aid, that's the drink of choice in the African American family. You know, when mom gets her food stamps, she goes down to the country store and she gets like a rack of Kool-Aid, you know. And so when you sit to eat dinner, the fried chicken, the butter beans with the cut up pieces of salt pork in it, or ham hocks or something like that in it, the collard greens with the salt pork in it to season it, and the cornbread, which would tear up the inside of a diesel engine, let alone putting it inside a human stomach. And you put all these things inside the stomach of a human being. None of it is any good. None of it. And then you wonder why the child acts uncontrolled. So when you don't have a man in the house to shape the boy and inflict discipline, then the person is out of control. And this is the beginning stages of what the American Psychiatric Association is calling ADHD. So yes, there is a nexus, as we call it in science, between diet and what they are calling ADHD.
I actually have a follow-up question, if I may. I was having a conversation. It was a jovial conversation, kind of a joke, but it kind of brought some things to light. You know, the conversation surrounded, you know, women or girls excelling more than boys academically. And one of the points I made, and I'm curious your thoughts on this, Doc, is how important, or is there any merit to there being a very distinct physical component to adolescent Black male schooling? And how does that play into or assist with these symptoms termed but not actually ADHD?
Again, I don't say anything that I don't intend. So when I say that that's another good question, that is what I intend.
Yes, sir.
When I was in the 9th grade of high school, had it not been for the fact that I got a free meal in the cafeteria every day and my love for music, I was in the band, I would have dropped out of school. There is absolutely, unequivocally no doubt about it. My mother had to rear 9 children, and there was no husband. And food was difficult to acquire. There were many days where we didn't go hungry, but we damn sure didn't get enough. And as a result, one of the only 2 things that kept me in school was the free meal in the cafeteria for lunch and my love for music. So I didn't care about school. If you go and consult people who knew me during those times, I had absolutely no interest in school. In fact, the only reason I attended college was because I did not want to continue to live as impoverished and without food. And I went to college just to get out of my hometown. I had no intent on graduating. I turned around one day and I was a junior in college. And it dawned on me that next year I'll be finishing because I was eating those 3 meals in the cafeteria every day. And they were free because I had a full band scholarship. So my tuition was paid, including my meal. And that's the only reason I went to college. So I don't have a grandiose story to tell you about, this projection that I took to get where I am. Everything that I am today was happen chance. Now, how many other black males out there who were on the same direction? How many other black males out there had the rudderless uh, 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 approach that I had to life when I was young? You see, no, but we didn't care about school because school is made distasteful to us. Why would I want to know about George Washington never telling a lie and didn't chop down the cherry tree? Why would I want to know about that? Why would I want to know about Christopher Columbus and popular sovereignty study in England and France during the Renaissance period? Why do I want to know about that? So there was no correlation between me and school. There was no connection. And I didn't get a connection toward learning until after I had left my PhD program at Ohio State. And I heard a man talking while I was in a dorm at Ohio State in September 1988. And I heard this man talking, and we were in the dorm talking about girls, and I would turn and look. I said, who is this man? But we kept talking about girls and drinking in the dorm. And I found myself going back to this guy's dorm room. I said, hey, man, put that guy on. He had VHS tape. He said, what guy, Vic? I said, the guy with the bow tie, put him on. And I started listening. And in 1989, December the 18th, 1989, I walked into a mosque. And after being in the mosque, that's the only time I started to take life seriously. Because even after going through a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, and 30 hours towards a PhD in digestive physiology and ruminant nutrition, that was the first time in my life that I started to take anything seriously. Because before then, I could walk into a government job and get a government job just like that. And that's what I used to do. So I kept a nice car, and I used to drink a lot, and I loved women. And that was my life. And it wasn't until I walked into that mosque, December 18th, 1989, and I started to learn Islam, did I start to take life seriously. And I think that's the case for most of us as African American males. Because without there being any guidance in the household, who's going to guide us? By the time a boy reaches 9 years old, the mother has done everything that she can do. I'm sorry. I'll repeat that. By the time a boy is 9 years of age, the mom has done everything she can do. The boy is supposed to be turned over to the dad at 9, because now the physiology of the boy is changing. The testicles are beginning to produce testosterone and place it in the bloodstream. So you start to see the characteristics of testosterone: dark skin, coarse, thick hair. The muscles begin to develop. The voice changes, becomes more coarse and boisterous. Aggression, you start to see aggression. You see, all of these are under the influence of testosterone. So if there's not a male there to stifle and teach the boy how to control that flow of testosterone, then you get what you find in the penal system.
Well, family,
broken down.
Right. We're at our hour mark, and we usually, like every episode, we usually don't like to go past this point too far, but we got way more than what tonight's topic was about. It was supposed to be about ADHD, but we went into a whole bunch of other things, and that's what I love about when Brother Victor comes on. But family, we're gonna go ahead and wrap this up. This has been a great episode, but as we talk about how real something is in the disease, right? We always, we always, whenever we're challenging a disease or anything of that nature, anything that our open enemy labels us, we always have to go to the root of how it came about. And our brother, biomedical scientist and agricultural research scientist, Brother Victor, did a phenomenal job in busting up a whole lot of myths, breaking down a whole lot of fallacies, destroying falsehood like crazy. Just went in, and we are very thankful for that. And we want to keep this series going. So we want to hear from you all as it relates to young people. What disease or what health crisis should we tackle next on this particular Joshua Generation series? And then we'll try our best to bring that to life. But Brother Victor, is there any last words you'd like to leave with the audience as it relates to ADHD, the Joshua Generation, and so forth?
Uh, one of God has enacted laws, natural laws, where anyone who doesn't align with his will is being removed from the planet. It doesn't matter who you think you are or who I think I am. There are natural laws enacted to remove you from the planet. You cannot straddle the fence today. You're going to choose a side. If you don't choose God, then you automatically have chosen Satan. Choosing Satan will get you removed from the planet. That's all I want to say.
Mm, Jabril.
Um, I so want to end it there. I think that's a beautiful
Yeah,
way to end it, though it
absolutely.
sounds a bit harsh, but it's the reality. I guess if I could say one thing as a new father of a now 1 year old son myself, these types of conversations hit me so differently because I don't just think as a young man, I think as a parent. And even more so, I'm thinking as one who's over in charge of men, in front the rearing of people and men's spiritual development. If I could say anything, really study your children and as men, be a part of the solution and helping our young people and young men out in the streets. If you take the time to study, you take the time to really look at what's happening, you can come up with a very scientific method that's conducive to growth and success. But you don't get that just by, oh, I'm gonna get mine and I'm gonna go over here and just take care of me. You do the same. Once you have a certain level of knowledge, you're now duty bound to then circulate it so that you don't cause cancer within yourself or another part of society.
Come on.
I know you like that. So, yeah, your brother's an engineer, definitely not a biological scientist, but I had to throw that in there. So I just wanted to say that
Excellent.
to close, family. We know the symptoms of ADHD are very real, but there's some very real systemic things we can do as a people to help the shift back to those who have self-control, autonomy, sovereignty, and can make our communities a safe and decent place to live. So that's all I got, bro.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I don't have anything, y'all. You took the words right out of my mouth, bro. And as someone who has watched my sister become a parent over the within the last year, and as well as my brother Jabril, you know, the changes that I've seen in them and the way they talk and the way they think and the way they conduct their lives, it's evident that the teachings of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad has touched them the way it's supposed to touch them. So I bear witness to that. And it being as someone who loves this platform and knows the power that this platform has to bring voice to the scientists, the black scientists, it is important that we have our people in these fields come to our people and explain to them what's going on. So thank you so much, Brother Victor, for joining us again. This has been another edition of the STEM Files, where we serve as the voice of STEM talent and Black culture. Our next week's episode, we're going to be building with, I think that's uh, the mathematician. We're going to have him back on again, Ali, Brother Ali. He's going to be talking to us about his new book that he has written for Black children to help them understand mathematics. It's going to be a very, very powerful episode. Please tune in, same time, same place. And once again, this episode of the STEM Files is, of course, dedicated to uh, our brother, Minister Victer Muhammad, who has recently made his transition to Allah. I just want to read this message from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Matter of fact, what am I talking about, Jabril? You go ahead and read that message, bro. You were named after him. Go ahead.
All praises be to Allah.
Yes, sir.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. It says, the Nation of Islam has lost a great minister, a great teacher, a great brother, a great friend, and a great helper to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and to me personally. Words will never be adequate enough to describe what this man has meant to our nation, to the messenger, to me, and to our cause of Islam. I pray that Allah will give me what He desires me to say to the world at a national janazah service in honor of Brother Minister Victer Muhammad at the National Center, Mosque Maryam, which will be held at a date and time forthcoming. Assalamu alaikum. I am your brother and servant, Louis Farrakhan, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, servant to the Lost Nation of Islam in the West. And family, that later date and time has been decided. I'm forgetting the time. I believe it's definitely this Sunday, the 29th, and
I think it's
it will
11.
be webcast.
Yeah, 11 p.m.
It'll be 12 p.m. Eastern time and 11
Yeah,
p.m.
12
Central
Eastern.
time.
Right.
So go
11
to
a.m.,
noi.org this Sunday, 12 p.m. Central, 12 p.m. Eastern, 11 p.m. Central, and what is that? 10, is it, 9 a.m. Western, right?
8 a.m. Western.
8 a.m. Western. Okay.
Right. Praise be to Allah. And Brother Victor, did you have anything you'd like to say about Brother Jabril? Any stories you may have or anything like that?
Brother Jabril, Brother Jabril and I really are a lot alike. we were treated the same inside the mosque, probably for the same reason. I know Brother Jabril. I didn't work with him a lot, but I do know him, and he was one of the people toward whom I gravitated in my early years in the nation, because for some reason, the older people who were with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad took more of a liking to me for some reason than the more new people. And they looked after me and they schooled me. And he was one of the ones who quietly dropped information on me, and he kept walking. And but for some reason, the people who were with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad during the first
Oh, there you go.
We got you, Doc.
We got you. Go ahead. I don't know what happened. What were you saying, beloved?
But that's all. He was just one of those persons who looked after me in my early years in the nation. People like himself, Brother Abdul Allah, Mother Tainetta, and Brother Benjamin and Mother Clara in Washington, D.C. These were people who looked after me. I don't know why, but they did. And I appreciated it because they taught me things that to this day, I still live.
Praise be to Allah. Yes, sir. Well, thank you for that. Everybody, if you understand the work of Brother Jabril, then he has touched your life, whether directly or indirectly in some kind of way. And he's definitely done that for me. But not only with the name of my best friend and right hand, but also with how he's been able to help me understand the nine ministries better. And all of his literature, from Closing the Gap to Farrakhan the Traveler, everything that Brother Jabril has ever touched was always about nation building. So I'm eternally thankful for that. But family, once again, this is the STEM Files, the voice of STEM talent and Black culture. We highlight the best and the brightest in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics in our communities. We want to make sure that we bring that information that can change your life and help you build a reality for you and your family right here on this YouTube channel, family. So stay tuned for more after this, and thank you for tuning in. Assalamu alaikum.
You believe in these false prophets, I say I bet he lying. No football, New York City Giants. Girl dad, rest in peace to Kobe Bryant. When we teaching our babies, we teach them heavy science. Heavy science. Heavy science. When we teaching our women, we teach them heavy science. Heavy science. Heavy science. When we teach men, we teach them heavy